Welcome to another edition of Posting Up with BBallDream. This is a special edition today. OSAA came down with some breaking news, and I have the guy right here with mid-major media. Let me make sure I got it right.
That's correct, yes.
All right, tell us your name and your company and a little bit about yourself.
I wouldn't say it's a company. It's more a group of people that want to donate their time. So my name is Robbie Scharf, one of the co-heads of mid-major media. Basically, we just run around the state covering 2A, 3A, and 4A sports because we like it. So we like covering the kids in the middle classifications, and we take pride in it. So that's us.
Okay, a couple quick questions about that. Why you guys just focus on the middle? Like more attention goes to the upper like 5A, 6A. What does it attract you guys about the middle of the classifications?
So I graduated from Amity, which is 3A. I went to Perrydale for a very long time, which is 1A. Momentarily was 2A. I have family that went to and coached at 4A schools. I myself coached at a 5A school and I'm now coaching at a 6A school. So having the scope of things, I can say from experience and from, just from people I've been with, that the biggest divisions within the classifications in the state between talent and the support systems behind schools and the communities behind the schools are from 1 to 2A and from 4 to 5A. 4 and 2A have much more in common than 4 and 5 do. And so that's kind of the idea between the mid-majors is that core central group of the classifications are very similar and go drastically more uncovered than the 5 and 6A classifications do. That would be, I guess you could say, sized to the classification. 5 and 6A get a drastic amount of coverage that isn't necessarily representative of what they deserve. And that's 5 and 6A schools, but that's kind of the area we want to focus on, is where that gap between coverage and what they should have is biggest. That's why we focus on the middle classifications.
It's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. And I just want to say, I follow you guys. We appreciate all you do. I coached at 3A and I focused a lot on 3A, but I expanded it and do all the classifications. But I really appreciate what you guys are doing. So if you ever heard it, you heard it from me. I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get it started. So OSAA breaking news. You kind of were like, you had a chance to listen in. Give us some info. A lot of stuff's going around. If you go to Twitter, one person say one thing, next thing you know, it's domino effect. Just give us a hindsight of what you've learned.
I think part of the conflicting information that comes from is as media, you're in these meetings and you're not entirely sure of all the nitty-gritty details of everything. So you hear one date thrown out and you hear another date thrown out, and you're not sure which one is actually meant for which thing. And so originally, season 1 calendar with the OSAA was going to go until December 28th. And then it was going to be, let's go. Not necessarily games starting on the 28th, but it's ramp up. We're getting ready to go. That was the original schedule that was put out in August. They're pushing that back, rightfully so, until the tail end of February. I believe the date is February 22nd. I would have to check and make sure on that. In fact, I have it pulled up right here. Yes, February 22nd. So that is the end of season 1. Once you get into season 2, originally, it's supposed to be winter sports. Basketball was supposed to be first. That's why we did our basketball previews over the last 6 days, is because we were kind of inclined to believe it was going to be winter sports coming into season 2. It's now fall sports, generally. Winter sports has been pushed back to the tail end. It is now no longer first. It is now last.
Wow.
So let me pull up the schedule again. This is from the press release that the OSAA put out a couple hours ago. Basketball, along with wrestling and swimming, will happen from the early part of May until the tail end of June. That is the new time slot for basketball. And in between football and basketball, obviously you're going to have spring sports, and spring sports is going to happen from the first week of April until the second to last week of May. So that's your new time frames. Instead of spring sports, instead of it going winter, fall, spring, it's now going fall, spring, winter. That's the change they've made here. So essentially what they're doing with the COVID worries that they have is, you're indoors, you're having, full contact sports with, wrestling and basketball. Yeah. Those are going to be your highest risk of COVID transmission sports. Push those until we have the best chance of being past this.
Okay.
That would be your May, June timeframe. That's basketball, wrestling. Football, your fall sports, is close contact, but it's also outdoors. So there is a little bit of a mitigating factor there. And that's why football is going first. Now, to me, it makes most sense to put spring sports first because you got baseball and track, which,
right.
Open air, not a whole lot of contact. But the problem is that if you ever try to play a baseball game in February, you're not going to get very far.
Right.
There's rain out every day. It's not going to happen. So what the schedule they have now is approached to get as much done in the most safe way possible. Now there was a proposal on the docket to possibly stack winter and spring sports. That's been talked about for a couple of weeks now. That got knocked down quickly. It was very evident in the meeting that there was some support for that, but it became very evident very quickly as soon as it was brought up by the folks from the 4A, the 3A, the 2A, the 1As.
Right.
That was not feasible.
Yeah.
At all.
No kidding.
Because especially at the 1A ranks, because at the 1A ranks, you're pulling from, if you have a school of 80 kids, say you have 40 boys, say it's 50-50.
Yep.
Even if you get all of those kids out, a lot of them are crossing over.
Right.
And so you cannot field a basketball team and a baseball team at the same time at a 1A school. That just cannot happen. And even if you could, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name from the referees, the referee group that was on the call. He flat said, 25% of our officials do multiple sports between basketball and baseball.
Right.
There's a lot of crossover there.
You already
have a ref shortage.
Yeah.
You already have a ref shortage.
You already have a ref shortage. And, if that's a crossover, there's no way that was going to work.
No.
I agree with that. That's good. I'm glad they came up with that part.
I believe it was a unanimous vote to stick with the 3 separate seasons plan. I believe it was a unanimous vote. I'd have to go back and check, but I don't think there was any dissenting voices with it. So as of the moment, what's the date? The
7th. December 7th.
As of December 7th, 2020, we are planning on having 3 seasons. So
that's good to hear. A couple questions, and if you don't know the answer, it's totally good. Was there any talk about the in-person? Because at the beginning of this, it was like, okay, it's going to be hard for us to have sports if there's no in-person classroom. Was that ever brought up?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
So if it did come up, it went right over my head. So
gotcha. Did COVID ever? Did they ever bring up with the?
Other than the regulations they have to deal with from the state,
right?
Not necessarily. It's mostly a regulatory issue that they have to jump through with pertaining to COVID.
Okay, gotcha. The last question was going to be, you just talked about it, having basketball so late, I was thinking it was going to put basketball during the February when it rains a lot, right? So you can because the rainouts, it's going to happen because I doubt if they're going to have enough room for them to make up games. So games probably just going to get canceled and they have to just keep going.
Well, and that's one thing I actually talked to a 1A AD after the meeting and was texting with him during it. And the one thing he did bring up is that the one advantage of stacking seasons, even if it wasn't feasible, which it's not in a lot of respects,
right,
is that if you stacked winter and spring seasons, you would have 9 weeks instead of 6. And so if you did have rainouts, you had a COVID outbreak on a roster, you would be able to make up enough games to justify a season.
Mm-hmm.
With the 6-week time slots, that does get tricky.
Right.
The one thing I would point out with the spring, and I'm pulling this back up just to make sure, spring games don't actually start until the week of April the 12th. Usually, baseball practice starts before basketball's over.
Mm-hmm.
So your the week of April the 12th until the culmination week is the week of May the 17th. You're not completely out of rainout season for baseball,
right.
But you are out of the thickest patch of that, I guess you could say, which is your late March. That is the thickest part because Oregon.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't stop. You don't get a break until the middle of April.
Right.
So there's a time frame there where you might be out of it. If we get a good spring, you might be able to have 75% of your games in some spots.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, with the time frame it has, that shouldn't be as much of a problem as it is at the start of most seasons.
Gotcha. Did they talk about COVID outbreaks? If a team, say a player has it, does that player has to sit for 2 weeks or they didn't really get into it because
they didn't discuss that? I would assume that's something that's talked about in a work session.
Gotcha.
I would assume.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not super knowledgeable in that aspect.
Yeah. I was just curious if they brought it up. But okay, sounds like they got some set dates. That's good. I'm happy for the kids, because what I was thinking leading up to December 7th, I was just hoping that they would just come with a date and say, this is when we're starting. Like no more, because I thought I read somewhere they was going to have another meeting February 8th, but I guess they got canceled. I don't know.
No, it's February. The next executive meeting is February 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I was just hoping they just come with a date and say, let's start, because I'm thinking the seniors. I'm putting myself in senior shoes, and it's no secret. A lot of these kids, they leave and they go in other states where they can play, and then some stay. I'm just like, okay, just come with the date, and it sounds like they got one, and just stick with it, because I don't want to feel like this is like carrying on. You know what I'm saying, Robbie?
The thing we got to remember though is that this isn't completely in the OSAA's hands.
That's true. No question about it. It's not them. It's not just them.
Yeah, and that's one thing that annoys me with some people that direct all of their angst towards the OSAA is that it's not in their hands almost at all. Peter Weber at the start of the meeting even said such.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at the start of the meeting, but at the start of the discussion about scheduling this is mostly out of our hands.
Right.
We have to comply with all of the regulations that comes down from the state, from OHA and ODE and such. There's no way the OSAA can just, we're going. They can't just kickstart it and say, we're going to start on this date, come what comes. That's it. They have to abide by everything that everyone else does. And so until the rules that everyone else has to abide by change, and he's been very consistent on this, Peter Weber has, for months, until the rules change, it's going to be hard. Right. And I think part of extending season 1 to the date that they extended it to was giving enough breathing room for rules to change as the situation improves. Right now we have exploding cases. In January, we might not have exploding cases, and the rules might change. Right. Once a vaccine starts to circulate within the population, we might get into a space where that February 22nd date doesn't have to change any farther.
Right. I don't think there's room to change it further. That's the scary part. That's why I'm like, let's do what we have to do. Let's do what we have to do. But it's kind of close. All right, let's move on to basketball. Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate you catching me up with OSAA. That was awesome. Okay, basketball. You guys came out with the polls. I like it. You got the buzz going. got a buzz score so much people were asking me because I usually do it for 3A, and I was like, I'm still reading theirs, right? Which is good. This is great. Get the juices going. Let's start up top. Let's start with the 4A. We're talking boys basketball right now. Give us your top 10 Oregon 4A boys basketball for the people that don't know it.
Okay, I'll just rattle off the top 10 real fast.
Yep.
You got Marist, Cascade, Marshfield, Gladstone, Woodburn, Klamath Union, Banks, Junction City, Hidden Valley, and Philomath. And there was a large internal strife about who was going to go at 10, but we decided with Philomath.
What made you pick Philomath? I was going to ask you that. What was it about Philomath that gave them that spot?
There are 2 reasons. Number one is Blake Ecker. Mm-hmm. Blake Ecker has been the head coach at Philomath forever and is widely regarded as one of the best coaches in 4A. Mm-hmm. Year in, year out, Philomath is competitive, sometimes in spots where they should not be competitive. Frankly, last year, we kind of fell in love with Philomath, watching them and covering them, because if you watched Philomath last year, there was a very large overachievement factor. From the perspective of, you look at their, sometimes you just look at a team and they just look like a dominant force. Mm-hmm. You just look at some teams and you're just like, okay, they're going to walk in the gym and beat whoever they play by 30 points.
Right.
For some teams you look at and you say, okay, they're going to get beat by 30 points by everybody they play. Philomath did not pass the eye test in a lot of games. There were a lot of games they walked into the gym, and if you just looked at them or had seen the other team play, you would say, okay, Philomath's going to lose by 15 points.
Right.
And then they'd win. And they'd win comfortably. And part of this was, if you watch Philomath last year, the dedication to defense and just rebounding and all the hustle stats that coaches talk about, mm-hmm. it was like the personality of Blake Ecker was just bleeding into the roster. They were one of the most hardest working, hard-nosed teams you've ever seen play basketball. And I wish they would have had a chance in the state tournament. But the reason we picked Philomath is because of the continued presence of Blake Ecker. And they have some dudes that, if they develop, could be some top-end players in their league. Specifically, Ty May is the one we're talking about. If he develops the way a lot of people in that league that we've talked to think he could, Philomath could be a very legitimate top 10 team this year. They could be a potential Forest Grove team again. That's why I put them at 10.
What year is Ty May? What grade is he in?
Goodness, I believe this year he is a junior.
Junior, gotcha.
I know he's not a senior.
Right. Oh, okay. That's good. Up top, you have Marist, number 1.
Didn't lose a lot. Very deep. Very deep. Very well coached. And frankly,
is it Ben Morehouse? Is that the kid's name? Ben Morehouse. I think that's his name.
That sounds right. Sounds right.
He's good.
They're very solid. And the way with 4A, how it ended last year, mm-hmm. there's got to be a little bit of anger on that roster, because they were a legitimate number 1 seed. Like, they were the team to beat in 4A. Sometimes you have number 1 seeds going into tournaments and they're kind of fake 1 seeds. Like, everyone knows they're not, they're maybe not the team to beat.
Right.
A couple years ago, De La Salle walked into the state tournament as like the 7 seed, and it was kind of like, okay, they're not the 7 seed though.
Right.
But Marist was a very legitimate number 1 seed, and they were the team to beat. And had they actually played the tournament, they probably would have been our pick to win the title. And so, I mean, it's kind of the same things as Philomath. Really good coach from last year. Really good coaching. Really deep. Plays hard. Fundamentally sound. Fun to watch. So that's why Marist is number 1.
Gotcha. Can you give us a team or two that was like right on the edge of your top 10? That you're like, that's right there, but we're gonna go with Philomath.
The one that pops to mind is Siuslaw. Siuslaw is not been a fantastic program in recent years, but they have been building something there. And you go through the roster and you go through the returning all league players, and there's a senior heavy quality to them, and there's a talent retention part to Sayusla that kind of gives some echoes of Philomath from last year. Kind of gives some echoes of 2018 Amity in some ways. Just super senior heavy, bring back most of their talent. And there's just a pop factor about Sayusla. I'm not entirely sure what it is. But Sayusla is right there at 10. They have more experience in a lot of ways than Philomath does, just coming back from the roster being so senior heavy that's why they're a candidate to be in the top 10. Before we did our previews, when we did a top 10 initially, we had Sayusla at 10. It wasn't until we actually got into the nitty gritty of dealing with the Oregon West Conference and actually, figuring out, okay, who's bringing back what, and, talking to people within the conference. That's one big thing that we really, really dig deep in, is talking to people within the conference and getting their views on things. Because if you talk to a coach within a league, they'll know a lot more than you do.
Right.
So, when we were just going off our own premonitions, we had Sayusla at 10, but then we floated Philomath in there.
One more team, Cascade. Because some people think that team right there could pull the upset and win a state title. Talk about them. You got them at number 2 in the state.
It wouldn't be an upset if they won a state title. I mean, seriously, if you could have gone 1A, 1B with the number 1 seed, you could have genuinely done that with Cascade.
Gotcha.
They probably returned the most overall talent. They've just in-house development. They've gotten better. Just from the people I've talked to, they look scary now.
Right.
Like last year, they were really good, but now they look scary.
Yeah. So, I saw Marist and I saw Cascade number 2, and I was like, I got to ask that question because I know what Marist can do, but Cascade is a team that's looking like to be dangerous. The
one thing I would say about Cascade is last year they had some fits with inconsistency. And that's one, we were really high on them at the start of the season last year. And that's one thing that I wouldn't say rubbed us the wrong way, but it definitely was a question mark throughout the season, that there was a little bit of an inconsistency factor. I think they lost to Newport at one time too, which Newport historically is a pretty decent program, but last year was
rebuild.
Rebuilding is probably the right word. Although they could have a pretty good season this year. So you could have put them 1B. You could have put them 1A with Marist. It wouldn't be a surprise if they won the title. I don't think you could say Cascade would be an upset if they won the title.
Gotcha. Okay. Marist, Cascade, take those teams out. If you could pick any team that you could say could make a run, I don't even know if they're having a state playoffs, because I don't know if they talked about that. Well, let's just say they are for the sake of the conversation.
Yeah.
There's one team you look at in the top 10 outside of those two, and you think, they really have a strong shot. If you could pick this one.
Outside the top 10 or outside the top 2?
Outside the top 2. Outside the top 2. You could pick one team. Who would that team be? Don't worry, I'll give you a minute.
I would. Yeah, I gotta think about that one. There's two that.
Okay, give me 2. If it's 2.
Okay, my two is, and these are teams that, and this is purely because of all the chatter that's been around them. Sometimes you hear preseason chatter and it's just nothing.
Right.
But when you hear it from authoritative figures, you take it into account.
Okay.
The first team I would say is Marshfield.
Marshfield.
Yeah.
Hey.
And we have them at number 3. And part of this comes from some of the people we've talked to within the SkyM. One in particular thinks that Marshfield, and this isn't a person at Marshfield, so it's not a homer thing.
Sure.
Thinks that Marshfield could actually be the best team in that league. Now I say that, and then I remind you that Marist is also in that league.
I was just about to say that.
So, assuming they're right, you could have Marshfield. Marshfield is a number 1 seed in the state, assuming that happens. They have a youthful. They have players coming back from the all-league roster that do suggest they will be up there. Talking to some local media members and talking to people within the conference, there is a very real sense that Marshfield could be that third horse.
Mm.
The only reason we put them at 3 because we felt that's about the highest we could put them, generally between, because Cascade and Marist do exist. But there is if you were to go with tiers per se, we did that with football last year a couple times, tiers of teams, championship teams, playoff teams, borderline playoff teams. I think Marshfield's in the playoff, in the championship bubble. I think Marshfield's in the championship bubble. And the other team I'm thinking about is Gladstone. Gladstone could be in the championship bubble as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They had some quality wins last year, I believe.
They did. I believe they won their league. And as much as we love North Marion, they were the more consistent team of the top 2 in that league last year. North Marion, extremely talented last year, very well coached with Tully Wagner, but had some inconsistency problems that lost them that league.
Gotcha.
I think it's fair to say.
Gotcha. Okay. One more. You got time for one more?
Of course.
3A basketball. 3A basketball. Let's hear your top 10 for the people that don't know. We're talking boys basketball here.
Boys basketball. So we got Cascade Christian at number 1, St. Anne Christian, Amity, Westside Christian, Yamhill Carlton, Dayton, De La Salle, Portland Adventist, St. Mary's, and Umatilla. That's our top 10.
Top 10. Okay, let's start. Let's go to the top. One of the legendary coaches, not just in 3A, but all across the state.
Yeah.
Talk about Cascade Christian.
A lot of the same characteristics as Marist. Very, very deep, very well coached. Return pretty much their entire core from last year. They lose, I believe it was Sean. They lose him, but you still got Dom Lewis.
Dominic Lewis is a stud.
Yeah, and if he's healthy, he's one of, probably the top 4 players in the state at the 3A level. Probably one of the top 10, 3 and 4A. Just a phenomenal basketball player. And when great coaches have a dude on their roster, you've seen this for years with Coach Ron Hopp over at Dayton. Whenever he has a dude, immediate contender.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they have a game changer, they're just an immediate contender. And Cascade, I think it's fair to say, returns, if not the second most talent in the state. And just considering the run they went on last year, and most of that same unit is still in the school building, or I guess on Zoom classes.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to put them at number 1, and I think it's a fair expectation that they're at least a Friday at Coos Bay team, which would be semis.
Have you heard of Austin Moyer yet?
I have. I've heard him very tall.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because of COVID, I haven't seen them play, but the incoming freshman stands at supposedly 6'9", or at least 6'8". We'll just take an inch off. Just, you never know. We'll say 6'8" forward. He's coming off of impressive camps, and pairing him up with Dom Lewis. I mean, there's no question they're one of the tops in the state.
There aren't a whole lot of 6'8" dudes at the 3A level, so that, if nothing else, can help him out.
Yeah, him and Jonah Catlin Gable are probably, because Jonah's he's legit 6'9" now for sure. So those two are just towering over people. Okay, St. Anne Christian, because we talked, offline, and I was saying, if SC, they graduated some talent, but I think, probably the best. I think the best player in the state is going to be Josh Baha. If he stays healthy, there's no question he can go. He's a 6'5". He plays the point. He's like a shooting guard. But then I hear why they're number 2. Somebody transferred into something about that. I'm not sure.
Well, okay. That's not necessarily the reason they're number 2. The reason they're number 2 is for the last couple years, St. Anne Christian has dealt with a not just a consistency problem, but a finishing problem, I guess you could say. They get to the state tournament or they get to the playoffs and they just don't necessarily finish, or the last 2 years specifically, they've had to deal with injuries to their best players. The thing, the prevailing thought for most of the offseason was Joe McQuaddich was not going to play this upcoming season.
He committed to NAU for football,
Northern Arizona for football. Yes, and in my opinion, he's better than that, but Northern Arizona is a good fit. So he's going to play.
So he is going to play basketball.
He's going to play basketball. He's excited about playing basketball.
Okay.
There is a juice in the program that hasn't been there in a while, and part of it revolves around the new coach. I'd have to go back and look at his name. I can't recollect it off the top of my head.
Hold on. Is there a new coach at St. Am Christian?
There is a new coach at St. Am Christian, yes.
That's breaking news to me. I did not know that. See what COVID does? Now you got to find his name. I didn't know who this is. I didn't know we had a new coach at St. Am Christian. That guy's been there for a long time.
Yes. Give me 2 seconds. I'll
What?
Yeah, I'll have to find it. They were solidly coached beforehand. There's just, sometimes there's just, when you get a new face, there's just new juice. But I mean, going back to last year's St. Am Christian team, I mean, Ben Galsron was one of the best shooters in the state.
He's one of the best point guards in the state.
He's one of the best point guards in the state. The new head coach is Tyler Ropp. Tyler Ropp. My understanding is he was the JV coach last year.
Okay.
My understanding.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I mean, if they seem to respond, so I mean, I believe in it. So St. Am Christian, you got to realize with Josh Baher, Joe McQuaddich, and there is depth there. They have a transfer from Crescent Valley who I can't remember his name off the top of my head either.
Yep.
Struggling with names. If there is juice there, St. Am Christian's immediately a contender. Like even last year, they were probably the second favorite until Josh Bacher went down. Mm-hmm. And then juice kind of came out of the program. It was like, okay, here we go again. So you have the reinfusion of juice, and I keep saying juice. It's just enthusiasm.
Sure.
And you bring back, you're right, probably the best, if not one of the best players at the 3A level. I don't see why St. Am Christian couldn't be the number 2 or possibly the best team in the state.
Gotcha.
They're certainly in there.
Gotcha. So I was trying to work on mine last night, but I stopped. But here's the first team that came on my list. I like Josh Ward and Amity, and I see you got them pretty high as well. What is it about those guys? I look at Josh Ward. He's not 6'9", he's not 6'10", but he's 6'6", and he's proven that he can handle the basketball, shoot it, score inside. And I know they got some pieces together with him, with a couple of juniors that's with him. They're a bunch of seniors now. Talk to me about them.
So we put Amity at number 3, and we picked them to win the Pac West. And that's a projection based off our thinking that they're going to click, chemistry-wise, just on the floor. Last year, Amity, like a lot of teams, had some inconsistency issues, and we wrote about this in our preview for the North Valley. We did Pac West in that. We talked about that in a 2-week stretch, they went from having 2 of their best games at Blanchette against James Moore and a solid Blanchette team for all intents and purposes, well coached, absolutely blowing the doors off of Nissa in the first round. I mean, blowing their doors off. Nissa was a very, very, very good team, and they were out of it by halftime. And then they walk into Coos Bay and just the Coos Bay curse, I guess you could say, but they lose in the first round, and then they're gone after Friday again. And, there's an on-court chemistry that just didn't feel right last year. If you go back to that 2018 Amity team that made it to the championship against De La Salle, there was a chemistry there that allowed them to get to the state title game. I'm not sure that same chemistry was there last year, purely because there wasn't quite the same communication without talking, I guess you could say. When you have really good chemistry with guys, you can make a cut and they know you're going to make it, and they're going to make the pass perfectly, and you're going to get the easy bucket. There's not, on the court, there were flow issues last year. And so when we made the projection this year, we made the projection that now these guys last year, Josh Ward, Keenan Graham, Isaac Watterson, Logan Grove, George Hatch, who's one of the more underappreciated players in the state, now being seniors and juniors rather than juniors and sophomores, are going to have that same bump they had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's why we have Amity at 3. And if they do hit their ceiling is at, if not farther than CCs and SCs. If they hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have them at number 3.
Gotcha. I know they lost to De La Salle in the second game.
Yeah.
And the first game, I can't remember who they lost to.
Cresswell.
Yeah. Cresswell and De La Salle.
Cresswell ran up and down the floor faster than Amity could know what was happening to them.
It didn't turn around. To play another fast team. Cresswell
was probably the fastest team in the state. I know De La Salle likes to push the pace, but Cresswell was something else last year.
They were good. Okay. You got to help me out here.
Okay.
Westside Christian. I've heard it. I don't know if you saw it, but I've been hearing about it. I've been hearing it. I have coaches in that league tell me flat out, Westside Christian is the favorite this year. And Dave Henry, he works his tails off, and I'm hoping for a season just for him because he has been through the grind and he's pushing every day, and he has a team. Mm-hmm. You have them at number 4 in the state, I believe. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that really quick?
Let me check and make sure they're number 4. Yes, we do have them number 4. I mean, you could start and stop right there. David Henry.
Yeah.
It has been a slow build at Westside. Mm-hmm. But even back in early 2017, the 16-17 or 17-18 season, you could see flashes.
Yeah.
I mean, the 17-18, Amity walked in there. I think they were probably the 6th or 7th ranked team in the state. And Westside nearly beat Amity, as I think they were barely a 500 squad. But the way they played, the way they frankly outmaneuvered Amity in a lot of ways, a very talented Amity squad. I think they only lost by like 5 points, and there was an atmosphere in that gym, and there was an atmosphere over on the Westside Christian bench. There was a vibe in that gym that it screamed contender. There just wasn't necessarily all of the pieces there. The framework was there, but the pieces weren't necessarily there. It wasn't quite ready yet. To use a bad term, I think the cake is finally baked. I think Westside is finally ready to boom here. David Henry is one of the most underappreciated, underrecognized coaches in, frankly, any classification in this state. And there has been chatter, you've heard it, for the last probably 6-7 months about them getting a ton of transfers from the schools around them. And they're there, and there are some real dudes. Talking to people in the Lewis and Clark League, I've heard the same thing as you. They are the contenders. They are the team in the Lewis and Clark League that could win the state title this year. And that is saying something, considering you have a team that's been to, I think it's 4 straight title games now, or no, 4 straight before this last year with De La Salle.
Yeah. Yes. And we're talking state titles, runner up. They won 2 state, runner up. At least 5 league titles in a row.
Yeah. One of the better programs in the state.
Yeah.
Nope. And you have the reigning champions in the Lewis and Clark League with OAS. And I've heard the same thing as you. Consistently, it is Westside, Westside, Westside. And so at a certain point, you're inclined to believe it. And we projected them to win the Lewis and Clark League, not going away, but certainly with the number 1 seed in their league, comfortable. And we projected them to be the number 4 team in the state in our rankings right now. And if just hypothetically, Amity doesn't boom, or St. Anne Christian has some problems, or Cascade Christian has some problems, or even none of those happen, Westside Christian could very realistically find themselves in a state title game. They're well coached and they have talent. Those are your 2 components.
Right. I agree. One of my favorite teams. I like the two sophomores down in Yamhill Carlton, man. The Robert twins. Oh,
I could just watch YC games and be content with life.
The taller one, I don't want to mess up the names. The taller one has gotten better.
Malachi? Or is Maroney the taller one?
No, Malachi. Malachi has gotten, I mean, he showed some improvements, man. I've been watching the highlights on him and reading about him. I'm happy for that young man. And Maroney's going to be Maroney. You know, they got the coach. You have them at number 5 in the state.
They could win the Pac West if Amity doesn't boom. Or even if Amity does boom, they could win the Pac West. They are, talk about those two components again, talent and coaching. They have both. And
they're so young. They're going to be around for a while.
No, they're going to be here for it gives
past COVID.
It gives some vibes of like 2014 De La Salle.
Mm-hmm.
It gives some vibes of that, but just quickly, the job Heather Roberts has done at YC is absolutely incredible. If you had seen YC in their last year of 4A basketball, I went down and watched them play Philomath in, I think that would have been spring of 2018, before they dropped down to 3A.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite bad. It was quite bad. I could have listed probably 25 3A teams that might have beat them. And I think they did lose to multiple 3A teams that year, if I am remembering correctly. There was talent on the team. It wasn't a basketball school at the moment. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked into a roster her first year that I don't believe had any returning players from the year's prior varsity roster. And so you're really just walking blind through that first year, just building something out of literally nothing. And then you finally get into last year, I think she won 3 games in that first year. I think it was like 3-19 or something like that.
Yeah, the year before her sons came.
Yeah, and then her sons come in, and the in-house development of the players from the year before reached a certain point where all of a sudden you get into mid-February and they're beating Dayton on Dayton's floor, where the year before they couldn't compete with the worst in the Pac West.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden they're beating the best in the Pac West. And it was instant. That's the incredibleness of what Heather Roberts has done at YC. It's been a complete turnaround instantaneously. Frankly, she would have been my pick for Coach of the Year last year, even with what I believe it's Coach Kirk over at OES did, winning the title with, the OES roster from
that's hard. Yeah, that's hard not to give.
That was an incredible tournament with OES.
Yeah. Coach Roberts.
Look at the job Coach Roberts did.
Oh, for sure.
Incredible.
Coach Roberts, Cascade coach. I mean, those two right there, I feel like they're right there. But what Ed did at OES,
should have gave out 3 different trophies, if we're being honest.
Yeah,
they should have gave out 3 different trophies.
Yeah, no kidding. But what Ed did at OES, I still don't understand how it happened. But I watched it with my own eyes. I was at the games, and I was like, "It's happening."
That was our warning sign that 2020 was going to be really weird. When De La Salle lost in the first round,
Salem Academy
every upper seed lost in the first round.
The top seeds, and OES and Cascade took complete advantage of it. And
Dayton went 0-2.
Oh, I know. Speaking of Dayton, let's roll right into it. We might as well keep going. Coach Hop is I feel like I'm gonna say it in an unfamiliar spot in rankings, being at number 6. They got two studs I like over there. They're seniors and juniors now.
Spink is one of them.
Spink, and I can't think of the other kid's name, but definitely Spink for sure.
Wouldn't be Ashley, would it?
Yes.
Okay.
Spink and Ashley, and then they graduated a couple seniors, not many, but a couple. Talk about Dayton really quick, because honestly, you never can count them out, because you got Hop, and you have some talent.
Well, I would say there's more than some talent. As we talked about in the preview, as long as you have Ron Hop, and as long as you have some returning experience and players that will play defense, It's Dayton. I mean, seriously, that requires no explanation. It's Dayton.
Mhm.
I mean, seriously, they're going to find themselves in Coos Bay. It's drawn out in the stars. It's going to happen.
Right. I agree. I agree. Then you have De La Salle, number 7. You know, they graduated 2-time player of the year, but Ubaday and a couple of those junior kids, they'll be right there in the mix.
Ubaday's a good player.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's a good
No
player.
kidding. He's a good player. He's a good player. PAA, thoughts on them? They got Andrew Vaughn. Some people felt like he was the best player coming in next year, but you know, West Side got new players, and they're gonna be tough. What do you think of the Adventist school, Portland Adventist?
Well, you can't count out Charles Wilmot either. You got to remember the best player off the championship winning team is coming back.
I'm talking PAA, not OES.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Lewis and Clark League in general. Okay.
Oh, got you. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Andrew Vaughn. You talk about top 10 players in 3A. You know, you're talking about your Dom Lewis's, your Josh Warts, your Keenan Grahams, Ubaday Magatha. He's right in there.
Yeah.
So, and then the Lewis and Clark League, it's going to be one heck of a race for Player of the Year. If PAA can pull some wins off of West Side or De La Salle and find themselves at that number 2 spot, or even win the league tournament, and so, you know, he could win League Player of the Year. He's a really special player. PAA could find themselves back in Coos Bay. That's, you know, I believe we have them at 7. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's a spot where you're
8.
right there.
You got him at 8, but yeah, still there.
I mean, you know, I'll say this: we have them at 8 in the rankings, but they could get a top 5 seed in the playoffs just because of how good the Lewis and Clark League is going to be. Although I guess you don't have a whole lot of interleague play that's going to happen, so the RPI and Collie might be a little weird. But
right,
in a normal year, PAA would be in a situation where they could walk into Coos Bay as the number 5 seed, as the number 3 team in their league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you saw that with Amity, Dayton, and Salem Academy last year as the 2, 3, 4.
Right.
You could find yourself in a situation with Westside Christian, PAA, and De La Salle. And big part of that for PAA is Andrew Vaughn.
Yep, I agree. Not to cut you off by Charles Wilmot. Yeah, he committed to play football, but the kid's stud basketball player of the year. Well, he didn't get player of the year. Side he got it, but still leading his team to a state championship. You know, got to show him some love. Number 9. This is where it starts getting intriguing for me. St. Mary's. I know Trey graduated. Tell me who they got back that you got him in the top 10. I don't know much, but Trey, just so you know. So
well, it's hard to overlook Trey, and Trey kind of eclipses everything else. So, but a lot of the supporting cast is returning. Mm-hmm. And talking to people within the league, it sounds, at least, like they have been spending a lot of time during season 1 devoted to basketball. And it sounds like, again, from the people we've talked to, they've gotten bigger, faster, stronger. And that on the defensive end, despite not having their, what is Trey, probably 6'9", super athletic shot blocker, anything in the paint's going to get sent to the second row of bleachers.
Broke the state record in blocks last year.
I don't doubt it. Even without him, they should be able to compete in that league. That's what I'm hearing from other people in that league. So I'm inclined to believe it. And there's a lot of top end talent this year. 1 through 6, really 1 through 8, and I'd say farther than that, have chances to win the title. Very, very real chances to win the title. And I'm not saying that St. Mary's, you know, given the right circumstances, I mean, they did win a title in 2016. No one expected them to.
Yep.
Under the right circumstances, they could find themselves right in that position. But because of everything else that's going on in the state, they're kind of hard to project at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think 9, and this was my reasoning in putting them at 9, I think 9 is a pretty safe spot to put them, because if they boom, they could find themselves in that 5 to 6 spot.
Gotcha. Umatilla, since we talked about everybody else, coming out of Eastern Oregon, what do you know much about Umatilla?
Umatilla and Nissa kind of tossed and turned over who to pick to win that league.
Between them and Nissa?
Yeah, Nissa has more returning all league players.
Right. That's kind of like.
Yeah. Honestly, you could go either way with that.
Sure.
There were some other candidates in there. There's been some chatter about Sutherland being pretty good, so you could have put Sutherland at 10 too. But Umatilla last year at the end of the season really came on strong. And it's Umatilla. I mean, if you've been around 3A basketball for more than 2 years, you would know Umatilla is usually a pretty good team.
Yeah.
They have a good program over there. They have a culture over there, frankly. So putting Umatilla at 10 is a pretty safe bet on them, because Umatilla, their down years aren't really down years.
Mm-hmm.
And their good years, they're Coos Bay teams.
They find their way. They find their way to get to the Sweet 16 every year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no team in the state right now. I'll put it this way: there's no team in the state right now that I would put Umatilla against and say there's absolutely no chance they can win this game. That's what you can say about Umatilla most years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't probably pick them to beat Cascade Christian or St. Anne Christian. I probably wouldn't pick that, but I would count them out.
Gotcha. That's good.
So that's why Umatilla's at 10.
Okay. Is there what teams, if there's one or two teams that was close?
Sutherland was close to 10. There's a considerable amount of chatter about Sutherland right now.
Mm-hmm.
Off the top of my head, Rainier is an unresolved thing.
That's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, Rainier. I mean, it's no secret the Cascade Range, or is it the Coastal Range? Coastal Range League last year was not spectacular, but they had some really solid teams and they had talent. The most talented team was probably Rainier, and they won the title in their league.
Yep.
And they have Kenny Tripp coming back. And the rule is same in football or basketball. If you have a trip, you have a chance.
Right. I agree. I agree.
So they, as far as I know, they still have a coaching vacancy. So as soon as that's resolved, you might be able to get a better picture.
Hold on. There's a new coach at Rainier?
That's my understanding, is the position is still open.
Wow. Okay. I thought it was Clatskanie.
Clatskanie had an opening too.
Whoa.
I know they filled that one.
Okay, but Rainier,
I believe, is still unresolved.
I did not. Hey, I'm glad we're talking, man, because I didn't know St. Anne Christian got a new coach. I didn't know Rainier was still open. Wow. Okay.
I believe Clatskanie filled their position with the old head coach from when they went to Coos Bay. I can't remember his name. Oh goodness, I can see his face. I can't remember his name. He had a son on the team. Yeah, it'll come to me after.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. Okay. I did not know that. All right. So I'm going to ask you last question, just like we did the 4A. We went through the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take out the top 4 teams. Let's make it more interesting.
Oof.
Take out the top 4. Westside, Amity, Cascade Christian, St. Anne Christian. If you had to pick one that could make a run
out of the top 4,
you take the top 4 out.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one,
if I had to pick one
or 2, I'll give you 2 again.
Okay, give me 2. That makes my life easier. It doesn't make it easy, but oh goodness. Well, it's between the next 3. It's between YC, Dayton, and De La Salle. 3 teams that are incredibly well coached. 3 teams that all have very genuine shots at making hay in Coos Bay, if Coos Bay exists. if I had to pick two, I would probably go with Dayton. Oh, goodness. I'd probably go with Dayton and YC.
Dayton and YC.
Probably go with Dayton and YC. Dayton because Ron Hop, and there's some depth there. And YC because their trajectory is insane right now. And their ceiling, you talk about a team's ceiling and a team's floor. Their ceiling is championship level for the foreseeable future. And if they get good matchups, I don't see any reason why they can't find themselves in the second day, Coos Bay still in the winner's bracket, and possibly, given a good matchup, find themselves in the title game. The only reason I pick those two over De La Salle is the departure of George Sadi is huge. It's a huge unknown. Ubade is a good player, and they have players around him. They were good last year. They were solid 1 through 7. But I got to see it. I guess.
I hear you. Here's a scary thing. I feel like De La Salle every year they graduate some guards. Javare, Moretu, Mike and Larry. I feel like every year, the next thing you know, they just show up.
Yeah. But the constant in that was George Sadi. And so now you pull the pillar out. What happens?
Wait and see. I hear you.
Wait and see.
Looking off, posting up with BBallDreams. Thank you so very much, Mid-Major Media. Talk to you soon.
See ya.